From International Computer Solutions, and we meet every Tuesday to discuss the tech topics of the day. To have a tech talk on Tuesdays at 10. I just like the iteration.
Before I forget, Scott.
Certainly.
Could your mother send me the pattern for those hats that you wear?
She might be able to. I'll ask her about it.
Okay.
I know that she uses a couple of different patterns, but I don't know if she makes them all up or if she finds them somewhere.
Okay. If she finds them someplace, just send me a link. And
I will.
I notice, with the amount of hair that I have, it's cold season, so
right.
I wanted to fight something for the top.
Well, I find them helpful in both the hot and the cold because I don't like to sunburn my top.
I hear you there.
At once, I'm making a note in our document here to remind me.
A link would probably be as good as anything.
Cool. So Bill's with us, Judy's with us, Fred's with us. I'm assuming other people will be joining us shortly.
Cheryl's in the background.
Cheryl's in the bathroom. So we have to talk really loud.
So I have a question.
Certainly.
Do you have any insight on the Apple, whatever they call that when they roll out their new phone?
Yeah, I'm calling it the September event because it wasn't very clear what it was supposed to be. And I haven't watched the full thing, but it was an iPhone announcement. They did announce
it was.
the iPhone 16.
And they announced that it's got a new, they didn't ever call it AI, but they called it something Apple-ish. And I wonder if you can decline that or if that's going to be a standard thing in the...
Well, what's a little infuriating is what they're bringing to the table isn't any exceptional twist in this AI world, which is on par because AI, as we're understanding it, isn't all that exceptional. And Apple has been including AI, as we understand it now, as part of their product since before, since I want to say the iPhone 8. They've been including computative photography for longer than that, but they've been using large language models, to help determine and increase the quality of photos easily since the iPhone 8. And so I've heard lots of commentary, and I would imagine from Apple's perspective, most of this AI stuff is the same as always for them, and they're having to readdress marketing to fit in the niche of what's going on right now.
However, the niche is collapsing, is what I keep reading.
And that's got to make these companies scratch their heads, especially like Apple. It's like, we're not doing anything different than we were doing before. We're having to put an emphasis on it because that's what the market wants us to do. And now it doesn't matter because the market's falling apart. That's the consensus of it. They have not, I don't feel like Apple has made an offering that's any different than any offering that they've been giving us with each iteration of the iPhone. What they have done is they put their marketing onto spinning it so that it sounds like all the other rhetoric that's out there. So they have this place in that investment market where people are looking at their stock shares and going, yeah, Apple's got it covered. Their stock's worth more.
The only thing that I saw that looked interesting was that you can point your phone at like a dog and it'll possibly identify what kind of a dog it is.
And none of that's coming right now. All of that's in iOS 18. Well, it's actually in iOS 18. Yeah, it's in 18 right now. The only version of 18 that's out is the beta version.
Mm-hmm.
So those features we haven't even really seen unless you're a beta tester. It will be. It seems like it is available. I want to say at least to the 15, but I'm not going to be surprised if it goes all the way back down the channel to as far back as maybe the 14 or the 13.
Or the
Because
12.
well, there's just nothing intriguing that has changed in their processor, and the amount of power that Apple brings to the table is insane, and the software still has not caught up with everything their hardware is capable of doing. So an iteration of the processor isn't really that interesting. In fact, what I heard a commentator say, the biggest change is that they filled them full of RAM now. So your iPhone 16 actually comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, that's on par with a low-end PC. And that's equal to what we've been seeing with the high-end Android phone. Until now, I actually just bought an A15 for Emily because her Huawei will not go on the network in the United States. In fact, we haven't really talked about that. That's an interesting topic in itself. But going back to smartphones, this Samsung A15 we bought is dual SIM, has 8 cores, has 8 gigabytes of RAM, and has 256 gigabytes of space. And the phone sells for just under $200. That's crazy amounts of power. That is a premium phone from 4 years ago, and it's a middle-end phone now, completely up to date. It's a 2024, running the latest version of Android, and even has a fingerprint reader built into the action button on the side. Another thing that the iPhone 16 is bringing that is interesting, there's actually 2 things. It's not the AI stuff, but it is a bigger camera sensor. So the iPhone has been ridiculed since the 8, I think, for having a 12 megapixel camera sensor. And all anybody needs to understand in this discussion is bigger is considered better. In the Android world, they have been on 40 to 50 megapixel sensors for a long time now, even in the most mundane of phones. In fact, going back to the Samsung we got Emily, it comes with a 42 megapixel sensor in a phone that's less than $200. But sensor size isn't everything, and Apple has a lot of technology that they're putting into their devices. And so they have used a 12 megapixel sensor all the way up till the 15. And because they have so much processing power, they have opted for computational photography to fill in that gap between optical photography that they're not able to capture because they don't have a big enough sensor. So the iPhone 16 is bringing a sensor that's almost, well, even bigger than 3 times the size of the current sensor. That means that it will capture more light data than it has ever captured before. And they've brought their processors up right alongside, so the size of the sensor is an afterthought. Whereas Android phones have had problems taking advantage of all that sensor data, create mediocre photos because they've cut corners in other areas. Whereas Apple hasn't even introduced this sensor into the framework of their phone, has reached a performance level that, yeah, we can capture all that. There's no problem with it. We've got all the space, we've got all the processing. And now they've filled it up with all this RAM. You've got all the performance of being able to hold that data in memory. Those are all interesting things. The new sensor, the Not the AI stuff per se, but there's a camera control button. Did you guys see this thing? So on the 15, they released what they called the action button. Very popular. The action button is a button that you are able to program. I don't know why any button that's on the side of a phone can be programmed by the user. Not the case. You cannot set up any button on your phone. And there's very few these days. There's typically like a power button and a couple of volume toggles. But you really don't find a lot of physical buttons on a phone device. But I don't understand why any given button can't be reprogrammed, but they never have been. And so in this case, Apple on the 15th, on the iPhone 15th, released a button called the action button, and its true claim to fame was that you could program it to start any particular application. One of the most popular things that Apple discovered was it was used to open up the camera. The button was used to open up the camera and take pictures as quickly as possible. It's one of the most popular uses of that action 15. And so coming back to this 16, and this is stuff that I was listening to the Vergecast talk about, the 16 has a dedicated camera control button. And this is very intriguing. In fact, I think if you don't have the 15, if you're behind the 15, like I have an iPhone 11, and one of the reasons that you buy an iPhone is because it's an exceptional camera, then you might be looking at this. And it may be because not only of the sensor, processor to handle the sensor, software that they've built to take advantage of all that sensor data now, but this camera control button is very intriguing. The dedicated camera button on the side of your phone that is actually a touch surface that acts as a click button. You can click, it's got a physical click. You push it in hard enough, it's got a physical click and it opens up the camera. Physically click it again, it's taking photos. But then it has this draw surface, slider surface. So it's like a trackpad, back and forth. And there's a visual that pops up on the screen to indicate that you're using it. And that can either be adjusting values in a function, or you can hold it at a specific depth and it'll open up a menu of functions. You hold it at a specific depth and you might have light, you might have contrast, you might have brightness across as options. And you let go and it's on brightness, and then you hold it at a certain pressure and you're adjusting the brightness. So it feels like what Apple's trying to do is they're trying, because they recognize the iPhone as being people's camera kit, they're trying to put more of those options readily in your fingertip. And I think that's very intriguing for people. Well, I really did go to the iPhone because I got sick of my Android camera never being ready. I probably heard me tell this story before. I went through a whole bunch of Android cameras or Android phones, and I would run into situations, not frequently, but there was always a reason my camera wouldn't work for something. And I could rationalize it away. I could do the maintenance that would make it ready. It would be ready 75% of the time, but there would always be that one hitch when, because of this and this, the camera's not ready. And I hated that feeling because I had kids, young kids. I had a wife that's a performer, and I just want to pull my phone out, hit a button, and start taking pictures or video. And that's why I switched to the iPhone. And the iPhone 11's been great for this. But these camera controls, if you are somebody like me that looks at the phone as a camera first and a phone second, then these controls might be getting you into this new iPhone. One of the things about the sensor, they've developed some new software. They're marketing it as 4 different cameras, but it's actually like 4 different modes from what I've heard. But because they have so much sensor data, because of how big this sensor is, then they've got a lot more options for the way they process. The way they do telephoto and the zooming is different. It's less interpretation and more actual data being. So again, I think those are intriguing reasons to look at these phones. The Pro version does have another lens, so another camera on it. But I think that's all I have to, unless somebody has some question. I did want to talk about some other Apple stuff that came out that I thought was pretty intriguing. If you're looking at our document, I wrote it down in our topics. Like what I'll do is I'll just stick that link that so if you're paying attention, they have included iPods with hearing aid capability. This is incredibly ready. We're incredibly ready for this. I was listening to some tech pundits earlier say this comes right out of the Trump administration. I hadn't really thought about it like that. But you know that it was during his administration that the Congress, bipartisan, came up with clauses that made it possible for hearing aids to be sold as consumer devices. They were no longer medical devices. And so we could buy them over the counter. And these headphone manufacturers, they've tried a couple of times. We've talked about the HP branded version of those new Hear that come out of Australia. Well, these iPod 2, the AirPod 2s are getting a hearing aid software update. This was kind of tongue-in-cheek when I was listening to the Vergecast talk about this, because these are not new AirPods. In fact, if you already own AirPods 2, then you are going to get this hearing aid upgrade. They've got noise canceling, and they've got hearing aid, and they've got software dialing, and they're $179. So you can dial in this software to your specific hearing, use it for audio canceling, or as hearing aids, or to answer the calls, or to listen to your music. They're waiting for FDA approval. I don't even know if they're waiting for FDA approval for that. They're waiting for FDA approval for the Apple Watch. Talk about that. I think this is standard hearing aid stuff that they don't care whether it's considered a medical device. But at $179, I think it's the first time I'm considering buying some AirPods, specifically because they can be. The third thing I thought was interesting out of the Apple announcements was the new Apple Watch. I don't think anything's really interesting about it. It's thinner. They got a black shiny color. But what they're announcing is a sleep apnea detector. That's what they're waiting for FDA approval of. But that could be intriguing as well. We might find out everybody has sleep apnea. That's the only thing I found interesting about the new watch. The screen is slightly bigger, so I guess you can get more data on it. It's got a good price. Starts at like $499. It also you can play music through your watch. You used to be able to Dick Tracy your watch when you're making a phone call, but if you wanted to listen to music through it, you had to use your headphones. Now you can listen to music through the internal speaker. The watch. It's also got a depth finder, so it'll keep track of how deep you are if you're. But I think this was sleep apnea. That's one of the intriguing things in the new version, and it's slightly thinner, so that might matter to people. And that's the extent of the things that I thought were important. Apple really. Anybody out there have their own opinions on any of this stuff? You guys don't care?
You say that the hearing aid on the AirPod, am I saying that right?
AirPods 2.
AirPod 2 can set hearing aid features?
Yes.
Like for your specific hearing loss?
Yes. That's the way I understand it. In fact, they showed on the screen an app that is representing where sound comes from and does audio tests on you so that you're answering questions. I don't know if it gets any deeper than that. You know, that H2 chip that's in these the AirPods are very sophisticated. It could be keeping track of temperatures. It could be doing a sonar thing on your eardrum. It could be if they put those kinds of devices on that chip. I know the chip is capable of doing stuff like that. Whether they included the hardware to do, I don't know. But the idea is that your hearing loss is dialed in specifically to your AirPods.
That would be interesting. I don't believe that they can do it. So we've just ordered hearing aids, and there's different brands, and the top end of one brand can't manage to get the wide range of hearing aid loss. Like, here's the normal sounds and the high sounds. They're all on the chart, and it doesn't have the power to make them clear. And I just wonder why Apple in a little AirPod would have that.
Well, they build their own chips. And most technology out there has to get them built for them. So Apple designs their own chips. So that changes what they're capable of doing. That's why there's so much processing power in it. And it's a little disappointing from my perspective because we're always looking at this device that feels like it's running underpowered because the software just doesn't catch up with the capabilities of the hardware they've created. We've put in landfills equipment that could be, I mean, powering incredible data centers if the software had been worked out for it at the time it existed. And instead of taking advantage of that technology at that time period, they chuck it. They do the next iteration. The next iteration, the hardware is even more powerful than the last iteration. And the software is slowly creeping up alongside it. But we definitely, especially in the Apple world, we have not reached a peak software that would push hardware. That just has not happened. That happens in the Windows world all the time. And so you wonder if they're even able to. I'm not surprised that they could pull it off, and I think it will become degrees of quality which you would buy. I suspect that after we see these play out in the marketplace, we're going to have an average of hearing aid consumers that are completely satisfied with these covering what hearing loss they have. And I think that would end up being a spectrum that would be able to be dialed in. So even if you're losing more hearing over time, you'd be able to adjust them for that. And maybe by the time your hearing is getting so that you would be looking for a more sophisticated device, for lack of a better word, like a very dedicated device, hearing aid professional equipment, well, you can bet Apple's going to have their AirPods 3, and it's going to include those features. Oh, so I think you're always going to be on the cusp of does this meet the quality of the professional until it's just the same thing, until Apple has gobbled up the professionals into their technology, or the professionals just that whole concept has gone away. In fact, if there's a pessimistic view to the outcome of the legislation made this possible, and a company like Apple doing this, is your hearing aids might not end up being covered by insurance in the future. You may have to just buy them out of pocket in the future. Chester, you have your hand up. Wait, what would you like to contribute?
Yeah, I want to just contribute a little bit of caution from personal experience of wearing hearing aids for a year and a half. Once you put them on and get used to them, you will find that when you take them off, there's a definite decrease in your hearing and your normal hearing. And I would be a little concerned if I didn't have a hearing problem, I wouldn't put them in because they will maybe make your normal hearing quite lazy.
Well, I think all these things we're going to have to see, because the hearing aid option and the audio canceling are options that somebody will have to turn on and play with, and we'll have to see how it works out for them. I would think if you were already having to or considering hearing aid at $179, I would definitely pick up a pair of these first, and not yet. They don't have it yet. This is one of the few events with Apple where they're just telling us what they're gonna do, but they don't actually have any of the hearing aid stuff also, and the sleep apnea stuff. I'm fairly certain for these things to work correctly, they're waiting for the latest iteration of iOS. So that's 18 on the phone, and nobody's running a version of 18 yet. And these phones are being released. They're not released yet. They'll be released with an 18 version, but it's not clear what version that. But ideally, the hearing aids, they're these iPods, these AirPods too. And the reason that they're important is because they use integrated chip called an H chip. The first one's the H1. This is the H2. H2 is dramatically more capable than the original H1, and that's why I'm not surprised that they could build software that would be able to take it. And I wouldn't be surprised if the AirPods 3 will include much more intricate sensors, like I was saying before, maybe a sonar for your eardrum, temperature sensor. They've talked for a while about putting health sensors in it, so you get temperatures from your eardrum for your health app. That neat. Chester, I'm sorry, I don't know if I added anything to your comment or not.
I think that what Chester, when Chester was talking, it reminded me of the fact that there's a whole generation, our grandkids are part of it, that have been using headphones, AirPads, all of them since they were very little. And I notice our oldest grandson, he often says, "What? I can't hear you." And I wonder how much of that is affected by the fact that he's so used to having it directly into his ears that he doesn't have the ability, or is his hearing affected that way?
Well, I had problems hearing. That's why a year and a half ago, I paid a lot of money to have them tested and now wear hearing aids. But I have to tell you, if I take these hearing aids out, my hearing is substantially worse than it was a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Well, another way to look at this is I could imagine hearing aids needing to admit that you need help hearing is admitting to your age. And I think there's a transition there that people they feel self-conscious about admitting to themselves that they need additional help to hear. And Chester, maybe you didn't feel that because you needed help with your hearing so much farther later in your life that it felt very like a natural progression for you. But I could imagine somebody my age, I have a little bit of hearing loss in one ear, and I feel self-conscious with the idea of wearing a device that is obviously a hearing aid in my ear. And if you were to think about people growing up, just like Cheryl said, having these ear pods in their ears since the time they were in their 20s, what's to say they're not like, you know what, I think I'm having trouble hearing. Let me get the hearing aid thing running. Oh, I am. Let me just crank it. Oh, there I go. Okay, well, I'm good. I'm good for another 5 years. I don't have to go out to a doctor's appointment. I don't have to explore this any deeper. I can just turn it on, and nobody's any the wiser because I've got ear pods in my ears all the time anyway. And
there's an issue there that what you're describing for a young person wearing the ear pods or the hearing aids at an early age is that the volume that they're probably getting accustomed to could very well damage their hearing just from sheer volume of the music, for example.
I believe that you're right. I believe that's a consideration with any of this kind of technology. In fact, maybe that leads something to what you're saying about you feeling like you have worse hearing since using hearing aids. I mean, being anecdotal, it would be interesting to find some studies on stuff like that. I would imagine a company like Apple is doing studies or researching studies in that regards because they know how overused all their products are. I would hope that what we're seeing though is a transition into a better technology. Bill, you have your hand up. What would you like to add?
Well, several things, I guess. I've had hearing aids for 25 years, at least. 30 years, whatever. And I've had them checked many times, like tested. Each time I go in to see about getting new ones. And they can show me the deterioration in my hearing, and it's been progressing, but very gradual. The initial damage was done, and then now it's old age. It's age related, the deterioration. But I understand what Chester's saying. Like I was working with the girl this morning on hearing aids, and as soon as I take my hearing aids out, everything is dull. But that's not because my hearing is worse. It's just because I've become used to my hearing aids, and I depend on them. That's the first thing. The second thing, when I was teaching in high school, the earphones were just becoming popular. They weren't the Apple ones. They weren't wireless. But I'd be in a reasonably noisy lab, walk by a kid that had these in, and I could hear his music. Now my hearing is bad to begin with, and they are drilling that sound straight into their ears at a tremendous volume. And I would tell them, I said, look at this. This is what you're going to have in 20 years, minimum. You're destroying your hearing. Oh, that's okay. They're invincible. And it wasn't the loud concerts or anything. It's that constant drilling that sound straight in. There's no escaping it. I had one other one. What the hell was it?
Yeah, no.
Anyway, the idea of being self-conscious about hearing aids is silly, because I don't know how many times I've mentioned to somebody that I wear hearing aids, and they say, "What? You wear hearing aids?" And they look, to me they're obvious. I see other people's hearing aids because I'm used to it. I've noticed that, but most people haven't got a clue that you're wearing actual hearing aids. And mine are over the ear. I have a hearing aid behind my ear, tube coming down, going into my ear. So I'm not hiding anything except maybe when I pull my hair over top of it. But that idea that everybody's going to look at you is absolute bullshit. That nobody even notices that you have hearing aids unless you mention it. So being self-conscious is just straight silly. There you go. I'm done.
I agree with you, Bill. I think it is silly, and at the same time, you can't legislate human nature. People feel self-conscious because their hair is falling out. They feel self-conscious because they got to wear glasses. You do have to get over it, and I guess what I'm suggesting is somebody that's having problems with their hearing loss can resolve it personally without feeling self-conscious. Maybe they reach an age where that self-consciousness goes away, because I know that I'm a much more practical 50-year-old than I was a 20-year-old. And there's a lot of bullshit out there that you subject yourself to that later you discover I don't care how anybody perceives that. What is that called? It's the geezer paradox, right? When you're cool because you stop worrying about being cool.
Yeah, well, that's true enough, I suppose. I don't know. It's just silly to worry about it. Like, I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is put on my glasses. The second thing I do is put in my hearing aids. The third thing I do is go to the washroom and put my teeth in. I don't have many parts left that I need to replace.
You forgot to take your sleep apnea mask off.
With the right background music and transitions, you're like Iron Man.
I've always thought of myself as a Superman or superhero, but I've never been able to accomplish much.
These guys on the Vergecast were talking about Tim Cook, the guy in charge of Apple, with what he's doing with these iPods and what he's doing with the Apple Vision. He's basically just going to build a helmet. And it will be all your real. This is actually something to think about too. It got me thinking. All your perceptions of reality will have this buffer in between you and it that will be this digital buffer created by Apple, ideally.
Well, here's the thing. One of these days, like I see the companies are developing the in-home butler robot now, looks a humanoid one. I figure within a few years, I'll just have to wake up, put on my virtual reality goggles and let him be me and wander around. I'll be fine.
There's a movie like that. I think,
of course there is.
Yeah. Was it? I think it was called something like Surrogate. I'm gonna have to remember that movie now. But that was the whole premise, was that people had chosen to live in virtual reality that sent avatars out to be them in life.
That's just an extension of the Matrix.
Right?
Only you don't need a physical, being out there doing it. It's just all virtual. There you go.
Found it. Yeah, it's a Bruce Willis. Very good. In the near future, people live their lives free of pain, danger, and complications through robotic representation of surrogates. When the first murder in more than a decade rocks this perfect society after career, Bruce Willis covers a vast got a 6.3 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes gives 37. I remember enjoying the movie. But essentially, it's a bunch of beautiful robots rolling around in real life as ugly, unhappy people trapped in a cocoon of virtual reality apartment. I think what they were proposing about Tim Cook's version is much more Black Mirror than surrogates running around, because the idea is we know already that none of us experience the same reality. All a victim to our senses. Everybody experiences differently. Some people have. We all have relative ranges, and we have our own interpretations of what it means. We've got our sensors that could be different, and we've got the way we process it in the brain. And so it's pretty well accepted common knowledge that experiencing this reality. Now, that reality being experienced through the senses, a company like Apple is putting these buffers in between your senses and you. Or at least the reality is being shifted before it's hitting your senses. Probably a better. So you've got audio reality changing before it goes. Got your visual reality. I wonder if like climate change and things of that nature will be solved only by putting a veil of beautiful reality in front of what's actually happening. Yeah, Bill.
I was just wondering if Apple is doing this, with their glasses in their ears, the further they go along, the further we will be coming to experiencing the same reality. They're manufacturing it so that we're all looking at the same thing and hearing the same thing. I think that's a conspiracy.
Well, you might be onto something if we're setting levels that we can check. Like I think hearing is a great example of that. Like your reality changes because of your hearing experience, but if they can figure out how to give you the hearing experience regardless how well your hearing is, then yeah, they've normalized those senses. So my hearing is better than your hearing, but we use their product. We're both hearing at the same level, having the same experience. Then you're right in that respect.
That's what I mean. I remember the first time I got the really good hearing aids. I came out. It was spring, and I was walking down the sidewalk with Cheryl, and I said, "Wow, gravel!" I could hear the gravel under my feet. The sand. Or my kids would get annoyed with me when they're riding in the car because I'd sit there and jingle the keys in the key on the keychain, not hearing. I couldn't hear it at all, and it would annoy the hell out of them anyway. So now my reality is the same as Cheryl's.
Well, I find it all very intriguing. I guess you guys have heard me say I've been waiting for hearing aids to be this disposable, this available. This is those ones out of Australia, we talked about those, had a price tag of $500 or advanced version with $800. This just makes it available to the masses out. I mean, anybody that thinks they might be having a hearing problem can get into this as cheap as going to a doctor. I just think that's an interesting. It's gonna send some ripples to the market. I think. Like especially with.
I wonder.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, sorry. I'm just wondering, like when I got my hearing aids, they were adjusting the sound coming in at different levels into the hearing aids. So that part of it's kind of customized. I wonder how they do that when it's just over the counter.
Yeah, well, you've come in a little late. We've been talking about what Apple announced at their iPhone announcement, and they announced these AirPods 2s, which already exist in the market, with a software update that will turn them into hearing aids.
Oh.
And so they showcased a piece of software that was an app in your phone that would allow you to dial them in using software and testing. And they say that they should have the same battery life, like about 6 hours. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play out, but we've just been discussing kind of the nuances of this up and rising technology. It may not. I'm sorry, Cheryl. What are you wanting to say?
Sandy, I agree with you. I really question how they'd be able to match it just for you. And we know that it's numerous visits back and forth to get it just right. The other idea that comes to mind is if they get them for $200 and they try them and they don't like them, then they're going to quit using them. I don't think we're going to solve anything by making them cheaper if the people don't have a good experience with them. We've got so many friends that get hearing aids, expensive, well matched just for their hearing, and they say, "Oh, I hate them. They don't make any difference." Well, then you need a different kind, like it's a process to get them so that you can actually wear them, so that you can use them. And I'm just afraid that this might make people go around and rather stay down.
Carol, I think our thinking are coming from two different sides of this. Because what I see is reasonably priced headphones full of features, and now they include hearing aids. That's what I see. Like to give you an example, one of the features you buy when you get into headphones from Apple at $150 or more is you can use your phone to find an earbud. Right? It's something, I've got earbuds, they're Anchor, they're great. I can't find it. When I lose one of them, I'm down on my hands and knees digging around on the floor in every room until I can figure out where I dropped it. Whereas if you pay $150 for a pair of headphones from Apple, your phone will zero you in on the couch cushion that it fell behind. And so it's those kinds of the audio canceling, so that you can hit a feature and all of a sudden all the background noise blurs out of your world. $150 iPhone AirPods do that. The Anchors don't do that. But these are features that are all possible because they have this supercomputer, this micro supercomputer in these headphones. So I don't see people. It'd be interesting to see if it gets to the point where it's folks that have had real hearing loss and used real hearing aids. I really see it more like people like me that's going up into this area of age where hearing loss is starting to become apparent. How long can we put off looking for a solution? And can I put it off long enough that the AirPods 3 or the AirPods 4 is the... Yes, Chester.
I think it would also be applicable for those young people who have hearing problems in one ear and not both ears, that this would be a very beneficial, cheap way to help that situation.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of benefits in having this kind of technology at this price point. The only, like I said before, the flip side, the danger I see though is we're commoditizing healthcare at this point. If it's good enough, then you might lose insurance coverage for the hearing aids that do work.
I don't recall being reimbursed or having my Medicare didn't cover my hearing aids. They covered the examination, but they did not cover the hearing aids.
That's exactly right. Insurance does not cover hearing aids.
That's interesting. What about you guys in Canada?
Yeah, well, we pay for a extended healthcare benefits every month, and we get 90% of our cost of our hearing aids covered up to a maximum of, so it doesn't cover everything. And then our government, anybody over 65, they get a set amount. It's $750 for a pair, and a pair are like 4,000. So, there is some money there. It comes down to, if they take that coverage away and they leave them at the price point, it's not good. But if they bring the price point down, yeah, then the insurance companies aren't going to cover anything.
So what I heard was in the US we have no insurance coverage, and in Canada there is some coverage. Is that right? Did I summarize that correctly?
Depends
on
I have
the examination.
Wait, Fred has something to add. Go ahead, Fred.
I have coverage.
Your hearing aids are covered by your insurance? I think he said yes. Was it a one-word answer, Fred?
Okay. $2,500 over 5 years, but they sit there and say, we'll cover 80% and you cover 20% of it, up to the $2,500 for the 5-year period.
And that's U.S. coverage?
Yeah.
Isn't that with Advantage?
No,
Must
that's
be.
Blue Cross Blue Shield Federal.
Because I don't believe mine does that, and I have Mutual of Omaha. I had Blue Cross Blue Shield before, and they did not cover, but that was last year, so maybe it has changed.
Well, that's what they tell me anyway.
Well, I would imagine with things like this entering the market, and it's happening very quickly now. Before it was just a snail's pace. Now it's happening really quickly. Apple is an example of this. I would imagine all the dynamics of pricing are changing very quickly. Be interesting to see what happens if they'll drop the insurances that cover it. If they'll drop it because it's so available now over the counter, or if insurances will just pick up the coverage. Easy way to make people happy, and it's not that. I don't know what to predict in that respect, but I do like the options. And I would never pay $179 for a pair of headsets. But if I could find them with my phone and they help me with my hearing, that's a very intriguing proposition. My up until it can help me with my hearing, my headset proposition stops at about $40. Anything above $40, I'm not interested. I'm only using them to listen to podcasts, answer the phone, and music. If you're gonna help me with my hearing and you're also gonna duck out the background noise when I want it, well, now I'm in the boat of $180 head. I think it's also significant that there isn't a competitor in this space right now. The only one I can think of is the HP branded one, which is $6.99, or their version of the Australian one, which is actually $4.99. But you put HP's name on it, now it's $6. So that's no comparison. That's expensive enough that, well, maybe I ought to look into my insurance helping. Well, other than Apple topics, does anyone have anything else they'd like to bring? Oh, I want to bring up the Bill of Digital Rights one. There's a new draft. I put a link here. Anybody can comment on it at this point. I'm afraid you do have to figure out the nuances of commenting on a Google Doc, but it's not too hard. Basically indicate where in the document that you want to comment about, and then a separate area that opens up lets you write a comment about that. Like you highlight and then you comment. But you're easily able to read it. You can pass this link around to other people you might want to have read it. The news is that Dad got me a meeting with our local representative here for our district, and he likes the Bill of Digital Rights, and he's passed it off to his legal team to write it up as a bill. He wants to push it as an amendment to the Alaska State Constitution. Isn't that exciting? He says
congratulations, honey.
Thanks. He says it could take years and it needs a grassroots movement, but he really likes the way it's written up. He likes the framing of it. It addresses issues that are not getting addressed right now in a very easy to understand way. So I look forward to bringing you updates on how that progresses, and eventually I will probably have a website so that we can pass this on. I also talked to a friend of the club, my friend Theo Chino, is also a social democrat activist in New York. He's gonna bring it up on one of his podcast shows and have their local reps look at it. And I have this vision of local government authorities pushing things like this forward, very similar to like our marijuana laws. At some point, it just has to be recognized by the federal government. So that's just a little back patting on my part, and
Okay, we need a sound thing with an applause and all that kind
No,
of stuff.
but 1 minute.
Oh.
Oh, the meeting shit. Let me open the other meeting. I didn't realize we would.
On that high note.
Let's change meet. Okay, the other meet is open. Hello, Chester. Also, Fred.
Because I'm gonna lie down for a couple minutes, dear. You wanna be there when? At 1?
All right, Fred's with us. Hope my mom block get. We're almost an hour into this, and we haven't brought up any of the news articles, which is fine. What about yourselves, Chester, Cheryl, Fred? You guys got some topics that you want to bring up in this meeting today? Troubleshooting we can do, or answering some questions, research? I'm assuming you guys can hear me just fine and have no.
I've got very jerky audio coming from you, Scott.
Well, yeah, I wonder if we're having some internet issues. You look very fuzzy. We had some power outages during the summer, and we had a large internet outage. 190 connections were down for a 12-hour period. We had electricity, but nobody in our area had any internet. And when they brought us all back online,
Yeah, you're breaking up.
testing.
I'm gonna leave and come back.
Okay. I don't know, Fred, are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
And I was going to say the only thing I'm having problems with right now, well, that I'm playing with anyway, is my Amazon Fire.
Oh, yeah? What's going on with it?
Oh, it's, trying to get Google and backload stuff and that kind of thing.
Trying to get Google, and how are you using the Amazon Fire?
Well, I was going to try and take it with me when I go get on the boat.
Oh, okay.
And in order to get stuff like the Google that we're on right now, you have to backload it. You can't do it from Amazon, and Google don't get along.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And are you even able to get the Google Meet app installed?
No,
That's what I
that's
was
what I was trying
thinking.
to do.
You'd almost, now what is available is Firefox browser and the Silk browser. You could open it up as a web app.
Well, I was under the Silk browser and was trying to do that today.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of luck you're going to have, just such a tailored platform. If you don't get any luck out of Silk browser, I definitely try the Firefox.
Okay, I will do that.
far as heat goes. But then you're not going to have a camera, are you? If it's on a fire.
I thought it had a camera.
Is it? Oh, is this a TV set?
No,
The Fire Stick you're talking.
yeah, this is. Well, here I'll show you.
Oh, it's a Fire tablet. Ah, I was thinking Fire TV. Okay, it all makes sense now. Yes, it does have a camera, of course. And same advice. Try the Firefox browser if the Silk browser does.
Well, as you could tell, I was being educational on it and playing hearts.
I have one of those $59 with the ad supported Fire tablets. And it's funny how often that's the tablet I go to. It's got my books, it's got my comic books. I've got Kodi in it, so I can watch videos on it. I've got Streamio on it, so I can watch videos on it. Small and light.
Unless they've changed something, for $20 you can get rid of the ads.
Oh, you know, I had considered doing something like that, but it's so old. I don't think I actually care. Like, hey, $20 will go towards a new piece of equipment when I feel I need a new piece. It's actually one of those original Fire HD. I just,
Okay.
I don't know if I even care whether I get ads at them to them.
Well,
If the operating system would update, I would be in. Since I'm stuck in limbo because of the age of the product, then I probably don't.
well, yeah, it does games quite well, but other than that,
I have a solitary game on mine, but it's not Microsoft Solitaire. That's where all my stats are. I'm always disappointed to try and play solitary on my Fire tablet. Completely different. Whereas on
well,
the iPad, the game gets to follow me around. Probably another one of those. Just like your Google experience, Amazon versus Google, Amazon versus Microsoft.
yeah.
Ah, there you go. You made it. You know what we forgot to tell you, Mom? Fred's interested in your beanie patterns for my hats.
I don't have any patterns.
No?
I cast on 60 stitches or on a real thin needles and kind of make it up as I go.
Well, I was enjoying your hats that you've been making.
You're selling them? What'd you say?
Say that again, Fred.
I've been enjoying the hats. I get to see different ones almost every week.
Yeah, he's got quite a few now. I haven't been making him hats this summer.
Yeah, but she's provided me with dozens and dozens of caps. I could probably go a month with a different hat every day.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure to have somebody who enjoys my knitting.
Well, if you folks don't have anything else you're interested in, I would like to bring up some of these news articles. See what seems I thought these were all very interesting and fun. One of them is this. Have you been hearing about this guy that they've got on a fraud case? Spotify. So the gist of this is a musician who was not making money on Spotify. He wasn't making it as a musician. used AI, create AI song. He made music using an AI generator. And then he distributed those songs on Spotify. And he created thousands of bots to listen to his songs. So he created fake songs and he created fake listeners to those songs that would in turn listen to advertising, and he would gain royalty from those songs. He was able to make quite a bit of money. It seems like this has let me into the Rolling Stones article. The whole article was available to me on the phone. The rest of the So a little life hack, if that happens to you, try opening incognito. There you go. There's a tip for the I don't know if you guys remember that trick, but a lot of these you need to subscribe. Subscription is free.
So what did you do? How did
I-
you go incognito?
I opened up an incognito tab.
Incognito.
Right? If you go up here, a new incognito window, and I pasted the link to the story into the incognito window. Well, incognito has no cookies or any of that kind of stuff. So a lot of these really superficial kind of, come on, nudges that it's like they blur it out and they're like, come on, sign up at least, it's free. We can track your reading habits. So a lot of those are very superficial, and you can just stick the link into incognito and it'll just go away.
So is incognito an add-on, or what is that?
No, it's part of all these browsers now. Some browsers call it private mode. In Chrome, it's called incognito mode. And they've recently gotten in trouble. This is a side topic, nothing to do with what we were just doing, but they've recently discovered that it's been bullshit, that Google has been keeping track of everything, and it's on your computer as well, and the whole concept of incognito is in question. Because Google was doing what they said they weren't doing. It's probably a topic for another time, but private and incognito have become in question most.
Okay, because for example, our Alberta Health System, where I can find out my test results and all my medical history, is now asking me, my Alberta, which is our province, provincial ID, electronic ID, is asking me if I would like to sign in using Google or Facebook.
It's a horrible idea.
I know.
A horrible idea. I'll tell you one thing that most recently, that on that theme, a problem that I'm having to deal with right now is that this organization that I work for is transitioning from Google to Microsoft. And that has become a question all of a sudden, because we have some users that have used their Google authentication provided by their workplace to authorize third-party applications. They're moving over to Microsoft and will have the same username, same identifier, but won't have the authenticator that Google was providing. So what happens to that third party? And I don't have a good answer for that. From what I have been able to deduce is that case by case has to be dealt with. So if you're somebody that has persistently used, for example, Google as your authenticator, not the app, mind you. I'm not talking about the two-party app. You're welcome to use that. I'm talking about your Google account. You're somebody that used your Google account to authorize your Twitter, authorize your Instagram, authorize blah, 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 right? Your Airbnb account. And now that email address is going to be associated with a different account. There is no key authentication in that other account that authorizes you on that third-party service. And so each third-party service you have to go to ahead of time and set up a separate authentication or lose that account. This is the best answer I've been able to come up with. Most people aren't even aware that they've done this. They just got into Goodreads. They don't know all their history is associated with their Google account's authentication. They just pulled up Goodreads and said, okay, I got a Google account. And I'm just using Goodreads as an example, or maybe a metaphor of the whole problem. But you can see how easy it would be to get into a third party. And it's one of the reasons I included that on the Bill of Digital Rights. Because it's so easy to get into a third party without even realizing what you've done. Oh my gosh, you've already shared your data with someone outside of Google. Feels like if it's that easy, it should be Google's responsibility to get that information back. Anyway, if you want to look at this article, and it's blurring it out, try incognito. And it's a long read, but it gives you an idea of a new kind of fraud that no one has ever considered before. Because of the way the way Spotify pays its artists are based on the number of times their song has been streamed. They derive revenue from advertisers, and they put advertisements across popular streams. So popular streams make more money. They've got more advertising. What this guy did systematically and maliciously went out. He even hired these farms, these click farms, to help him generate thousands of accounts that would act as Spotify accounts listening to his music, set up playlists that, I mean, I don't know if anybody actually listened to his music other than bots, but the bots are the part that make it a fraud case. The bots are probably make it a RICO case, organized crime case. He is looking at a total of a combined maximum of 60 years in prison, which in any other country it would equate to pulling the trigger on someone. But no, in this country, of course, that's much more than you could get for shooting someone. Because you're stealing from artists. That's what they say. That's the case. Is that because and this is something I just recently realized with Spotify. I didn't realize Spotify was working but they grade on a curve. So they take all the streaming that ever occurs as 100%. They figure out which percentage of that is your works. And then you get paid more based on that. And so this fraudster was able to appear, well, I mean, he literally did. His works had a higher percentage of streaming, which means by default, actual musicians making actual money have a lower percentage of that income. And if people were listening to this fake music, if it was literal people, well, that wouldn't be fraud. If this artist's music is all AI music and the audience loves it, and the audience is real people, there is no fraud case here. The fraud case is used bots to listen to it, which bumped up the percentage of listens in Spotify entirety, which derived income from other streams in the algorithm, because it's based on the entirety. It doesn't matter how many times somebody streamed your music. It matters how many times your music was streamed within the entirety of streaming. That's what you get paid for. I didn't realize that Spotify did this, what I see as a curve, like a grading curve, which you used to hate in high school. Why'd I have to take that class with such a smart person? Could have gotten a much better grade. Well, this is a very smart industrial An industrious musician who could not figure out how to make money playing legitimate music or legitimate means, and put together this whole scheme with such arrogance that, oh, and it wasn't just Spotify, it was a number of different streaming, Apple Music's included in it. There's a number of different streaming services that did this with. Amazon Music is included in this. But he had figured out, yeah, here it is, 10,000 bot accounts. And he did this with such arrogance that when a music service felt like there was something fishy going on and they blocked his account and stopped his revenue stream, he protested it. They have a system, what's it called, to appeal the decision. They have each one of these systems an appeal system in case they've done something wrong. Same kind of thing you deal with on YouTube. If they give you a copyright strike, it's basically, hey, wait, hear me out. You've made a mistake. So he appealed to it. He was upset that they would affect his income this way. So it's an interesting case. There's a lot of information here. It's a long read. Gives you a lot of insight into the streaming music world that we live in now, how artists are paid in it. And I think I come away from it feeling like it's a legitimate fraud case, mostly because they can show that it legitimately hurts other artists. Well, that was the one. Well, we can do this quick. This is just a Telegram update. We've been talking about Telegram for the last few weeks. We talked about how this gets compared to WhatsApp and Signal. It uses the same underlying encryption scheme. And what we discovered for last week is a large portion of what Telegram does is not encrypted, done right out in the open. And that is the grievance. Grievance is that people are doing heinous stuff out in the open. The company does nothing to try and block it. Now, if they had implemented encryption all over the platform, you wouldn't be able to see it out in the open. So all the heinous stuff would be hidden and perfectly legal. I can't tell from my tone. I find this to be a very difficult wrap your head. Regardless, what the CEO is saying now is that they have started moderation. So they're having a complete change in their. I don't know why. I don't know why it's taken this to bring it to a head. I don't know why they were so against it in the first place, and it's in this rants that pushed this. But Telegram is now saying they're changing their policies. They've changed there hasn't actually, from what I read, there hasn't been anything that looks like they've technically anything, but they have changed their FAQ and explained that things will be submitted to moderation, and what they will have, not sure they have yet, is a button in every communication. You can report some kind of violation, whether it's public or private. They didn't say that up front, but the way I read it, it sounds like every dialogue have the ability, and you've seen this in Facebook too, and Twitter still has it. Anything different topic, but you can click on options on something that has been posted, and you can choose whether you're going to report it to moderator. It's a little after the fact, but the idea is that it's showing that we're going to try and moderate our content so that we're That's just an update. And the third thing I brought, and I'm just kind of rushing through these now because we've gone over our hour, is if you haven't been watching this, Ars Technica has this great article on the private network, the hidden Wi-Fi network that was shared amongst all their chiefs on this military boat. They have a ringleader who put together a plan to let Starlink onto the boat and give access to a small group of managers. They were kind of blatant about it. They called the network stinky, and they really pressed their luck because there were areas of the boat. I look at the boat. If this is actually a picture of the boat, of course they had problems using Wi-Fi. That's an all metal hull. I bet they had all kinds of trouble using it. They probably started distributing Wi-Fi range extenders because it was getting suspicious. Like 4 or 5 people huddling near the Wi-Fi receptor with their computers and phones. They're being brought up on charges. This is a real security issue. When there started to be questions about it, they changed the network to look like a printer. So they did some like very. Oh wait, there's a picture of it here. It's not a great picture. This is it. They basically mounted it to like a pallet and left it on the weather deck, which, as I understand it, is just the roof. One area that has a bunch of sensors on it, and they got away with it for a while until they started distributing access points around the ship to get better coverage. Here is Elon Musk's joke on Twitter about this issue. He says, "We're changing Starlink's default Wi-Fi name by Starlink." Right? The irony is, and I haven't vetted this, but I've heard that the Navy is testing Starlink right now as an official form of communication to their people. Here are these people that are doing it covertly against regulation, and they're about to be brought up on charges. And at the same time, the Navy is considering using Starlink. I brought nothing else except for these articles. All of them are very interesting reads, so I encourage you to take a look if you haven't already. The only other thing I brought is a quote to Gemini AI that generated a table. This is the command. Ask Gemini. Create a table comparing camera features iPhone 15 versus the new iPhone. Generates a table. I like the generate table with this stuff, like comparison shopping, because the AI, you're not seeing this. The AI picked, it thought I wanted 12 megapixel sensor versus 48 megapixel sensor. You'll notice a lot of these recording on this first one that will go frames per second. So that's your AI command today. Ask Gemini to create a table comparing camera features And then as far as a movie suggestion, I mentioned Surrogate earlier, so I added it to our document. And at this point, we typically take recommendations before we sign off. Is there anything out there you guys want us to watch, listen, read, visit as a website? Let me know now. Mom's got her hand up before Cheryl can say anything. Okay, Mom, go ahead.
Cheryl. We watched one. It's called romance drama, but I'm not sure there was a lot of that in it. It's called Forgotten Love.
This is a show or a movie?
It's a movie, and it's just a nice story of what happens to a surgeon who loses his family and his memory and gets a chance redemption from a connection from someone of his past. So the whole show, it has a rating of 7.5 on IMDb. Quiet film, something that you can follow along while maybe you're doing other things. Maybe.
I've got
Anyway,
it on my
I
screen
offer
now.
that. We enjoyed it enough to make it a recommendation.
I think we talked about this before, but I haven't gotten it. Oh, it is on the.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't look there first.
Maybe I just. Regardless, I feel like we've talked about it before because I. Being a different
Maybe that's
name on.
where I got it from you guys. The
Yeah.
other thing, oops, now, you need to tell us about the new Beetlejuice.
Oh my gosh, I should have added that to the list. Because we did. We went out and saw Beetlejuice. And it was a lot of fun. I feel like it had stuff in it. Like you may not enjoy, any given person may not enjoy a 100 movie, but you will definitely find stuff in it. Feels to feel like Tim Burton did a good job of it just being so inclusive in his genre and the storytelling and the bits that were funny bits that anybody would find something to appreciate. We really enjoyed it. We're also big fans of the first movie, but it just does not feel like this.
My goddaughter went to it, and she and her sister are huge fans of the original. It was enjoyable, not amazing, but lots of fun. And Catherine O'Hara left no crumbs. She was fantastic. Jenna Ortega gave it a realness that helped offset the relentless, silly camp. The visuals were pretty good, and while I did not feel like the music was nearly as engaging this time, they still had fun with it. Don't expect the same level of joy as the first one, but it's worth a watch.
Well, I thought Catherine was one of the best parts of this. Got so many opportunities to be funny. It was awesome. We were laughing out loud. I am adding it. So Cheryl, what did you want to add, or was Beetlejuice?
No, actually, I was looking for things. So Sandy, thank you. Forgotten Love I've seen on the menus, but I didn't remember us talking about it before, so maybe I will give it a try. I've really gotten into audiobooks, and I'm trying to get my brother-in-law convinced that he should do that too. He likes to, he's gone back and he's read Clan of the Cave Bear, and he's got the second book, and he says it just takes him so long to read it. And I said, maybe an audio of it would be a good one for you just to have on while you're, playing your poker or whatever. You could have it on in the background kind of thing. So I'm hoping to find.
What was that? Valley of the Horses?
Yeah, Valley of the Horses. He's God. And then I don't know what the third one's called, but he would like to find it. So.
Oh, I bet I have it here somewhere. I'll look.
So is that your recommendation? Clan of the Cave Bear on audio?
Well, audiobooks, don't forget them. It's good to do. I do have something I've seen websites that are actually news reports out of Mexico that the ferry to Guaymas is going to be activated. I keep finding news articles. I keep finding, well, all in Spanish, that I can't seem to translate. And I can't find anything that actually says, okay, these are the dates it's starting, and this is where you book your tickets. Everybody keeps talking about it, but I don't find any actual sites to book. So,
Hey, you know what? I was surprised they had a grand opening for the hotel or for the hospital. So,
hospital.
yeah, I mean, like, really? It's finally open? Really? I expected us to be waiting on that project for another couple years. But
Yeah.
they had the grand opening. So who knows? But I got to tell you, I'm in the same boat as you. I was looking at that going, "Oh, that's really interesting." Every article says to push tourism. That means this is happening with federal money. Because
Yeah.
right? And so
Well, I guess to promote, tourism. I don't know if it's local money or what it is, but
oh well
but get
in my parlance, it's federal money.
okay.
It's not local money. It's because tourism is 70% of the gross national product. Then Mexico has federal money to encourage tourism. It's one of the reasons that we have the Puerto Mexico. It's the reason that some of our roads get fixed, stuff like that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure this is it as well. They're subsidizing this area to promote tourism. But like you, I haven't seen any schedule. I haven't seen anything but squishy information. I haven't seen any concrete information.
Right. And then, I ask people, to share any experience or the actual places where I can book it. And they just go, it's true. It's true. Okay, fine. All I'm looking for is,
I take all of it in Mexico with a grain of salt. It's not true until it's true. That hospital, I was like, it's not really a hospital until the last brick has been put in.
Okay, now here's another thing. They built a hospital and it had 3 wings in it, and it took 12 years to open 2 of those wings. We had a hospital in my parents' hometown or city, and 2 of the wings, they didn't have enough staff. They didn't have this. They didn't have that. Those beautiful buildings sitting there, nobody in it.
Well, another example, not hospital related, but just project related, is the Foxconn Wisconsin facility that was built. They did eminent domain on property. The town gave tax breaks to encourage a production to encourage industry in their area, so there'd be jobs. And it sits vacant, a ghost plant put together by Foxconn to appease the Trump administration with the idea of bringing jobs back to the United States. It's a
Yep.
game. All of it's such a game.
Sandy's got her hand up.
Oh, yeah, Mom, what do you want to bring up? What do you got?
Well, I don't have anything. I was just thinking with all of the cities such as Barcelona and Rome and and some places in the US are telling tourists not to come, where they're trying to cut down their tourism. Like we've got Juneau that is talking about maybe taking a vote of not letting tour ships stop on Saturday or something like that. Mexico might want to take advantage of that and really start building up more tourism, more opportunities, because people won't be able to get into other places, maybe.
Yeah, I think you'd probably find it surprising what influence tourism has in federal government in Mexico. It is recognized as one of the biggest. So I would imagine that you would be surprised by how much influence, how much discussion already happens about tourism. You can bet they're trying to take advantage of it. Every time there's deaths, kidnappings, drug cartels, it's all hurting the tourist industry.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I see
We have
Cheryl's
Dash.
waving goodbye. We are at the end of this meeting. We're 36 minutes over our hour. We're always over the hour.
I'll see you
Carol.
guys next week.
We'll see you next week. Until then, tech on. Fred, your last chance. Last words till next Tuesday.
All
I
right.
thought you weren't going to be here next Tuesday.
I am going to be in Phoenix next
Didn't you say-
Tuesday. And I guess I have, what
Yeah.
I forgot to mention is I may not be in a position to do a virtual meeting next. Bringing that. I'm going to.
Well, nobody's here but your mother.
Yeah. I will send out an
You make-
announcement confirming or canceling by the end of this week.
Okay. Well, I hope to see you next week.
All right.
I'm good. I'm good until the 24th, and then I'm going to be on a boat. So
Well, enjoy yourself,
until
Fred.
yeah, headed for Australia.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, yay.
Been there
Alrighty.
before and enjoy. All right. Have a good one. Take care.
All right,
Wherever
Fred.
we are.
We'll see you. Mom, talk to you later.
Hopefully next
Okay.
week.
Bye.
Hopefully
Bye-bye.
next week. Bye-bye. Check on. Well, guys, that's us again. The hearing aid thing is I'm turning. The natural progression. EarPod. Well, like I've said before, this is the San Carlos Computer Club. We meet every Tuesday, 10 o'clock Arizona time. That's a United States. And the Arizona Sonoran time. On Tuesdays, everyone is welcome to join us. You just need a link to our meeting. Get that from our website. You can get on a mailing announcement before we send the meeting. Send out a document of possible topics we might cover. And obviously, free for all meeting. Not very organization. Till next Tuesday, you guys have a great week and tech on.